persuasive title, but I knew that that's what it was supposed to be, Escaping Christianity, Finding Christ. Not an indictment against God or Jesus or any of that, but sort of an expose on the system that teaches us things that are not necessarily accurate or profitable for our journey. I describe in here my journey as brainwashing and programming. And there's something that happens to us when we have buy into a belief system, especially that has its basis in fear. There's something that happens to the neural network and the pathways in the brain. Yeah. And it takes a long time to come out from that. I'd say in here that I had a high school friend that joined the Loonies. Remember the Loonies, Audrey? Mm-hmm. And we just thought, oh my gosh, how could she be so gullible? How could she be so, stupid for joining a cult? And when her family finally found her, she was just 16 or 17 years old. She was on the West Coast, probably up in Seattle somewhere, and they went and flew out there and they brought her back, and she had to go through a rigorous process of deprogramming, and she had only been gone for maybe 60 days. And I kind of chuckle about that now because I'm still going through deprogramming. When you sit under something for so long, and a lot of the motivation is fear, something very primal in your second chakra, your survivalism kind of kicks in, and it really holds on to concepts that are not healthy. So in my book, I talk about my journey. Again, I think that it's important that we bring light and information to systems that keep us paralyzed with fear. And for me, my particular brand or sect of Christianity was very not healthy for me. And so it's a story of my journey. I talk a little bit about the metaphysical interpretation of Scripture. I was telling Alice, just when we were talking before, just even about who Mary is. In the Scripture we know that it's the woman that didn't have sex and got pregnant with Jesus and birthed Jesus, but really Mary is you. Yes. You are the beautiful chosen one that has been penetrated and impregnated by the divine. So humankind, the virgin, and never before, I believe, has there been found something that hadn't been penetrated by divinity, and that's the material plane. And that's why it's considered virgin in a lot of cultural stories. But you're the virgin. You're the one that has been impregnated with this seed, this spark of the divine, and it's growing inside of you. And if you remember the parable of the mustard seed, begins very, very small, but soon overtakes the garden. And that's the shift that we're experiencing with the scales there is we are becoming less and less human-driven and more divine principle as we begin to leave behind the driver that has driven and sustained this passing age, which is judgment and intolerance and fear. So, okay, so the agenda next, I'm going to have Avis, my friend, my sweet friend, come on up here, Avis. She's going to tell you a little bit about her journey. After that, Avis I met, maybe 8 years ago, and just became fast friends, even though we don't talk very often. We've got some kind of a connection between us. Just a lovely, lovely woman, and I call her she is an empath. She is a healer. She may not realize all the ways that she is, but she's a link and a bridge and a connector from this world to the next. And she brings healing to many without them knowing about it because of what happens in her body. And she's got a fascinating account to tell you about that I've asked her to share again. It was something that was particularly moving in a meeting 2 years ago in Dalton that was very powerful. And anyway, I'll let her speak about it, tell you about it, and just give props to Avis.
Thank you. I'm just think of the rent-a-car. And, maybe you can remember my name by that. But I was raised United Pentecostal from birth. My dad was a minister all my life. He just passed away about 3 years ago. And I've often said that I was born on a Saturday and probably in church on Sunday morning. We didn't miss. We didn't miss. So I was indoctrinated, brainwashed, whatever you want to call it, very powerfully from day one, in my mother's womb, I'm sure. And so there's things that I've had a struggle with coming out of, things there that didn't make sense. I'm of mark where I was told of a loving God that loved me and would accept me just as I was, but he couldn't wait to change me. Soon as he accepted me, he had to change me in all these things. And I was a fearful child. I would go to bed very afraid that, what if tonight's the night Jesus comes back and I did not repent of something? I might have had a bad thought. And, I mean, you know, it's terrifying for children to be raised that way. I was raised in a lot of fear because of the kind of God that they taught me about. I was raised in a lot of judgment and criticism because you have to have that in you to keep that fear going. It's just part of it. And so I have came a long way, started coming out. I sat on that Pentecostal pew as a young married girl. I was born in Oklahoma City, and when I was 8 years old, we moved to Hale. And I had to be raised in Idaville, Oklahoma, which is
where did you move
to Hale. That's what that area represented. I mean, little. And so I was raised there, and when I turned 18, was I 18? I think it was. When I turned 18, I got engaged, and I left Hale and went to Texas. So everybody knew that I went to heaven. I lived in Brownwood area of Texas for 30 years, raised 2 sons, and I still have one and some grandchildren there, and the other one, he got out of there as soon as he could. And anyway, in that journey of being in that Pentecostal church, coming out of my dad's, that was, you know, he was God to me, because but he showed a love that didn't match the love of the God that they were telling me about. Because my daddy loved me no matter what. He loved me no matter what. But the God that they kept telling me had all these conditions, even though he was unconditional in his love. But he had so many conditions to meet that unconditional love. And I moved, had children, and as a young adult, sitting in another preacher's Pentecostal church, I would sit there and I'd look around at the people that had been there all their life, the elders in the church, that would love to get up and testify. I've been in the way for 40 years. And you want to say, then get out of the way. Right? But these people that were so baby in spiritual, every little thing they had to run and tell and whine and all that, and you're thinking, all their life they've been in this and they haven't grown any? Oh, there's got to be more to this than this. And that was started my quest. I would say, there's got to be more than this. There's got to be more than this. And God sent this precious, precious little lady that was a real estate lady in town. Somehow, she got connected in the church. I don't know if she sold the pastor that happened to be at that time a house. I can't remember. But she started coming and visiting. And that lady had more love coming out of her than anybody in that church that I had seen. And she had short hair. She had makeup on deluxe. covered in jewelry. I mean, all of these things that was the sin.
Yes.
So how could she have a love of God in her when she was nothing but a sinner? And that's what I was taught. And so it made me see that God was so much bigger than what I could see. It just didn't make sense. And I started my quest of, okay, God, I want to know what you say. I'm tired of hearing what they say. I want to know what you say. And in that quest has brought me to here. It hasn't always been easy. I don't know any Greek, don't know any Hebrew. Every now and then, Lynn's voice will ring in my head and I'll hear one of his words come out. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. But I'll hear you say it. I don't know what it is. But, you know. So, I don't know. I haven't studied all of that. But I do know of my own experiences and of where I've come from and what was planted in me and what has happened in me. I have found out, like I said last night, knowledge is not understanding.
Yes.
And we have been getting knowledge now for a good while. And it's wonderful. But you know what? If we don't get that knowledge, we will not know to seek the understanding of that knowledge. Because you don't know to go get understanding about something that you don't have any knowledge of. Correct? You've got to have some knowledge in you to know that you want to understand it. I am one of these people that I dissect things. I want to understand our relationship. I want to see why you feel the way you feel, why you're the way you are. I look beyond. I want to see the why behind things. I'm not happy with just saying, oh, you're having a bad day. Well, why are you having a bad day? You know, what's happened to you? I want to see all the whys behind there. And so I have sought for understanding for a long time. I want the understanding behind why the knowledge is supposed to mean what it might resonate in me, and I know that's truth, but I want to understand it. Have y'all been on the internet and seen the guy that learned how to ride the backward bicycle?
Yes.
Our CEO of the company that I work for, a young guy, seen that video, and I had seen it before too. And what the backward bicycle is a bicycle that when you turn the handle to the right, the wheel goes to the left. When you turn the handle to the left, the wheel goes to the right. And because of the wiring in our brain, if you know how to ride a bicycle, you cannot ride that bicycle. You just cannot do it. Your brain will not let you do it. You cannot get the balance. So our CEO seen that video, and he wanted to try to figure out how to do that. And he built him one. And he worked every day for a while for 6 months before he could ride that bicycle. For 6 months. When he finally he wrote it in the office around, and he said, I'm going outside and I'm going to ride it around this building. He got out there, he's riding around, he turns a corner and this little lady's coming around the corner. And his mind looked for 1 second, he blinked up at her and thought, somebody's there, and the instant he did, he was flat on the ground again. Because he had lost the focus that he had been practicing, and his brain automatically reverted back. We got a powerful thing up here.
Yeah.
She talked about the wiring in the brain. It takes a long time to undo some of the wiring that has been done to us from when we were children. It took him 6 months to learn to ride that bicycle. He can ride it now, but he cannot ride a regular bike anymore. Your brain won't let you do both. He cannot ride the regular one. I got to thinking about that and got to realizing the stuff that I had been indoctrinated with from such a young age. The thoughts that I thought as a child. The ideals and the concepts that I could see that didn't make sense, and was trying to reason them through a childish mind to make sense. To an adult, it wouldn't be looking at it in the same way, but to a child, I'd see things. I had the experience of, that she was talking about one day, of hate. Growing up all my life, I was told you cannot hate. That was not to be a word in our vocabulary at all. You don't hate anything. The devil's the only thing that you're allowed to hate. You cannot hate. And yet, growing up, I didn't think I did. I didn't think I hated anybody because I would just flat shut that out of my mind. If I didn't like something, I just didn't like it. But I couldn't hate it. But yet I went to school as that little Pentecostal girl that had the long skirt on, the stringy long hair. And back in the days when I went to school, the girls were just beginning to get to wear pants to school if it was below 32 or below. But if they didn't have pants on, they all had skirts on that came right here. Mini skirts were in style, and the shorter they could get them, the shorter they got. I mean, all of them. Well, I got mine down here. I didn't get to wear them even up here. I couldn't even wear them. And I didn't fit in because I'm the Pentecostal little girl that doesn't fit the crowd. And it works on a little girl's psychic to not fit in. Because we all wanted to be the same. You know, we wanted to fit. I didn't know I was made to be unique and different. I thought I was supposed to fit. And, you know, I got made fun of a lot. I got bullied a lot. And, you know, I hated them kids for that. But I couldn't hate them. Because they were all going to hell and I was going to heaven. Yes. So I had to love them. That's the warped in the thinking. I couldn't hate. I couldn't hate. So I would never let myself experience hate as an emotion. I just wouldn't let myself. About 3 years ago, some situations were happening and with our children and different things that were going on in our life. And all of a sudden, I began to feel emotion of hate coming up in me. And I would look and I would think, I hate that. I hate him. I hate. And then I would, well, where is that coming from? I don't hate anything, you know? And Ray would do something that got on my nerves, and I just went, ooh, I hate him. And then I'd go, no, I don't, you know? And then somebody would do something, and I hate that. And I would kept correcting myself. And so one morning, he comes in after he had been up. He usually gets up before I do it. He had been reading something out of one of the many books that he had gotten from that Lynn had put us onto. And he was real excited about something he had read in that book. And I had just got up, and I'm not always in the best of moods in the mornings when I get up. I need to wake up a little bit before I get to, want to know anything. And I don't drink coffee, so I mean, I can't say I got to have my first cup of coffee. But I do know that effect. But he'd come in, and I had sat down in my little chair there, my little corner, and had my laptop computer in my lap, and I was like checking my email and going to look at Facebook, and as I'm trying to get awake, and he comes in the room and he says, "Can I read you something?" And I thought, okay. So I just looked up, and he's reading me something, and I look back down, and I look up, and I look back down, and he's real excited about what he wanted to read me. But see, he's wanting my response too of what he read to me. And all I'm thinking is, okay, I don't care, you know. I just want to read this. I just want to read this. And then he could tell I wasn't really getting into it. He said, "But there's one more thing I want to read you. And then you can do what you're doing." And I said, okay. And I thought, Avis, set the computer to the side and listen. So I set my computer over, and I turned to him, and I listened. I couldn't tell you what he read, though. Today, I don't know. But whatever it was he was reading to me, it got us talking. And from that talk came up this emotion. I mentioned how our emotions, every one of them are important. And we've denied feeling certain emotions because we've not known how to control them, and we've let them control us. And so we deny them because we don't know that we can control them. And I just broke down then, and I started talking about the hate that I had been feeling. And he didn't have any idea that I had been feeling this stuff. And I started just weeping, and I started saying, I hate, I hate, I hate, I hate. And it's okay for me to hate. And I just wept, and he just bent down on his knees and hugged me, and he said, just go ahead, you just let me cry. And I said, I hated being that Pentecostal girl, that I had to go to school the way I was. I hated that I was raised in what I was raised in. I hated that my first husband ran around on me for 30 years. I hated, and I just would name these things that I never allowed myself to feel, because hate is not something you're supposed to experience. And in that release of just getting that out and just bringing that up through me and admitting that it was there and embracing it, that it was okay to feel it, I had such a change in my physical body. I had been carrying, I had been having so much shoulder and neck pain that I was having to go to the chiropractor pretty regular. I had massive, massive migraines from it. The minute that I let that stuff out of me, it was like something just unlocked in the back of my neck and in my shoulders, and it was gone. Because see, that's where I had carried all of that hate. I had let it stay in me. I wasn't dealing with it. I wasn't embracing it. I wasn't even acknowledging it. But it didn't go away. It was just locked up inside me. And I had such a relief from that hate. I have had very few headaches since that day. I will say I haven't had any, but I've had very few. I was sharing this in Dalton 3 years ago, and I could see as I was sharing it, I could see this energy leaving people. I could see lights coming out because they recognized that story in themselves. And because I'm up here, open, in an open channel, and energy finds the least resistance, I didn't realize I was taking that energy. It was all coming to me. And when I got through speaking, I sat down. My chest, I've had what they have told me was a heart attack. I have 5 stents in my heart. And I know the pressure that felt like. I thought at that moment, sitting in that chair in the front there at Dalton, that my heart was literally going to explode. It was so painful. But I didn't want him to know because I didn't want to worry him. I got up and I went to the back, and I'm pacing back there, and I'm thinking, okay, what am I doing? They're fixing to have to call an ambulance because then I'm fixing to die on them. I just got here. I just get up and tell them this, and then I'm going to die. Oh, wow, man, they're going to believe what I have to say now, And so I got Barb's attention, and she came back there, and she worked with me. Mark Eaton got up to speak, and we didn't get to hear anything he said because that whole time we were back there trying to release this energy out of me. And she started in, and we've done this more than one time, but at this time, started working it from the lower realm and bringing it up. And when it hits my heart area, it was rough, wasn't it, Barb?
Changes form in the heart.
Yes.
Changes frequency.
And then we began but it took us that whole hour to get this energy changed and released, where it had, people out there probably didn't even realize that they had let it go. Just they're recognizing it, begin to let it go. And it came to me. And so this experience was the first of many since where I've had to go back in because of things that are happening to me and in my body because of where I've been. I copied from Barbara. I got Barbara's thing. And I guess you can see the man or the person that I drew in there. And honestly, I intended to only paint in the color of him. I couldn't stay in the line, so I just did like Barbara did. But when I seen this chart, the root chakra here, it had not hit me that the root chakra went all the way to our feet. It just hadn't hit me that before, in our hands. That's a lot of hell we gotta go through right there. Look at all that hell. Our body carries a lot of it. And that's what them chakras, when we're living in that state, is. So I have stuff that the roots went all the way down and beyond from Pentecostal days. Here, a while back, we'd been talking about this. Barbara had asked us about this conference. So been thinking a lot about it and been talking about it. And been thinking about where this is, what we're going to do here and how this is going to take. And my thing, I guess my added part to any of this is my experiences. Because I know if I'm having an experience in something, many of you are too, or you're going to. But because of my experience, some of you won't have to. Thank you. And so if I can share that, maybe you can skip some of the things where you don't have to go through it. This age thing that we've been talking about, the shifting in the ages, it's a major, major shift in consciousness. It's not the raising of consciousness. It's not the consciousness is all of a sudden coming into something. Consciousness always has been there. It's our awareness to it that is becoming open. Our awareness to what's already there. And we're coming out of what we thought. It's a shift in us. We're the shift because we're shifting to see what we are. We're shifting to know what we are. I begin to see that the Piscean age, I believe, was a very masculine-driven age, correct? The masculine energy was very, very strong in that, and it was an age about duality. It was an age, and there's nothing wrong with that, because in duality, we saw us and God, me and you, us and them, all of these things that were separated up from us. But to see the contrast and to experience the contrast is what's made us change. It's what's made us grow. We needed the contrast. And so there was nothing wrong with that. Well, we're shifting now from seeing the contrast as you and me being separate as we're one. The oneness in it all. There's no race, there's no gender, there's none of them boundaries. No country, none of them boundaries. Because we're seeing that we're all one. We're all one. And so we're coming into seeing that what our duality was, and I wished I had the battery up here that I like to use, the little AA battery or whatever. Well, you look at that battery, it's got a plus sign and it's got a negative sign on each end. Which one are you going to call good and which one are you going to call evil? It's all one battery. But it has to have both. So we are that way. We may have the male and the female. We may have the different races. We may have the different religions. We may have the different ideas, the different beliefs, but we're all still one. We need some contrast sometimes so that we can grow through contrast. So in this, I could see in that Piscean age that is leading us, that masculine is a very strong energy. I mean, it's had, what, over 2,000 years to build, correct? Now we're moving into more of a gentler feminine of oneness. And so I seen it as it pulling and trying to hold on to its reign. But it's got to fall away. You can't have change without something falling away. You can't. You can't have change without something falling away. So as that is pulling and pulling, there's circumstances in our lives that are showing us that pull. I told her yesterday, I get to see a lot of the falling away. It's not always easy to see the falling away. It's not always easy to see how it plays out. It's not easy to see the old energy rise its head and say, I am not going to be part of that because that's just not right or whatever. It's holding on. But we're a gentler age. We're not pulling back and saying, oh, no, 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 we're going to do it this way. What is happening is more of these that are pulling that away are beginning to wake up and say, oh, it's okay, and they move over here. So we've got them just one by one. And when we get the 10th, when we get the numbers, there will be a tilt. Some of the things that we go through right now and that we're plowing through, will not everybody have to do it this way, because once the tilt happens, it'll be an automatic shift. So we have forerunners, we have first. It's not easy being a first sometimes. I had an experience here a while back where, very painful, and it had involved my mother, like involved his mother. You have things that come up about your mother, it's touchy. It's touchy, because they're precious. They don't do no wrong. My mother died in August of this year. She's been in a nursing home for several years now. Could not do anything for herself. She talked, but you had to really listen close to understand what she had said, but she hollered a lot. But a few days before she died, we had gone to see her 2 weeks before she died. And a few days before she died, I was having a dream. And in this dream, my mother had come to me, and she looked so young and healthy and beautiful. And I was asleep in my bed in the dream. Have you ever dreamed that you're asleep? I was asleep. And I was so tired and so exhausted, and I wanted to wake up and talk to her. But I was just so tired, I did not have the energy. And she's trying to wake me up, and I knew she's there, and I wanted to wake up and talk to her. Finally, she just pats me and said, you're exhausted, you need your rest, go ahead and sleep. Well, does that story kind of sound familiar? Who slept in the garden? I think we've heard that story before. But I woke up almost immediately after that, and I told her, I said, I had the strangest dream about my mom, and it was so real, like she was there. And I told him about it, and I said, it didn't make much sense, but she was so real. Well, she passes away a few days later, and I go to Oklahoma, and I go in to do her hair for her last hairdo. I get to put the last Pentecostal do on her. And she hadn't been able to have one in a while, and she missed that. And so she loved for me to fix her hair. I'm good at them Pentecostal do's if anybody needs it. I am a master at them things. Mama had a picture of me, this side note, that 14 by 20 or something, I don't know, this huge picture of me, and there's more hair piled up in that picture than there is of me. I'm like this, and my hair's like this. And I did it myself. That's horrible. But I am in there fixing my mother's hair, and my sister's in there with me. She didn't think she could go, but she wanted to go, and her husband was in there. So she's kind of standing over. I'm standing here doing mother's hair, and she's kind of way over here, just kind of watching most of the time. Every now and then she'll come over there. She finally gets where she can come a little bit closer and deal with it. Some people can't go in and deal with touch dead bodies and do that. And to me, it was such an honor that I got to do what my mother loved me to do, and that was she loved me to fix her hair. So I got to do that. And I put enough spray on it and enough stuff on it, it'll last her through eternity. In fact, the funeral director came out and said, whoever did her hair sure did do a good job of making it stays, and most of the time it falls before we ever get them out here. Said, you did a good job. And I said, yeah, that hairspray is wonderful, isn't it? But as I'm fixing her hair, my sister says, Avis, I forgot to tell you. Mother said a couple of days ago, I went in to see her, and she said, oh, Avis come to see me yesterday. And I said, and she was always coming up with stuff, so she didn't pay a whole lot of attention. But she said, oh, she did. And she said, yeah, but you know, she was so tired and exhausted, all she could do was sleep. And when she told me that, I just went, wow, Brenda, oh, wow. And she goes, what? And I said, she came to see me. She came to see me before she died. But I was so tired and exhausted, I couldn't get away. But I believe, and I know I'm not supposed to be believing, but I think it was to show me that when she comes now to talk to me, that I will not doubt it, and I will know she is talking to me and she is there. Because she confirmed it to me through her dad and through my sister, that it was actually her that come to see me. That she come to see me, and I'm waiting for her to come and talk to me now. And I told her, I said, Mama, thank you so much for coming and talking to me. Next time I'll get woke up. But having to begin to deal with these issues of my mother had 6 children. I am the 5th. When I was born, she had 2 others in diapers. I mean, she had boom, boom, boom. And so I know my mother had her hands full. She married at 15 years old. She didn't know anything. She was the baby of 9 kids. Most of her brothers and sisters, you know, had long gone by the time she had gotten to be a teenager, but they all spoiled her rotten when she was little. And she didn't ever have to do anything because she was the baby. So she marries and she's got all these kids. I know my mother had it very rough, and then she got into this Pentecostal realm that she fought for a while because she was Baptist. She would come in, go to church in the Pentecostal realm, get baptized, do all their hoops, and then, no, wait, I don't think that's right. She'd go back to the Baptist church, get baptized again in their church. She wasn't real sure. And then, no, and then she'd come back. So she fought that for a little while in her beginning of her Pentecostal days. Because, you know, she wasn't real sure just of this. But then when Daddy got called to preach, well, okay, then now she's got to be Pentecostal. So I know some of the struggles that she must have said that she never told us about had to affect her greatly. Me and my sister were about the same size most of our life until we get to be older, a little older teenagers, and then I just took off and left her, even though she's older than me. But everybody thought we were twins. And they would come up and they'd say, your girls are so cute and they're so sweet and nice. And Mother would say, oh, you don't know. Looks can be deceiving. No, you haven't been around them. She didn't know how to take the compliment. But we would hear this. And I wanted Mother to be proud of me. So I would try to do things to make my mother proud. I wanted her to say, she is nice and sweet. So I would try to do things to make Mama proud. I became a people pleaser very, very young. For one, I had to please an angry God all the time. Because I was always sinning and didn't know it. Because that's what they told me. And then I wanted to please my mama and my daddy. And being the fifth out of 6 kids, I got to see a lot of heartache that my brothers and sisters put my parents through, my older ones, and see what they, on the sidelines, me seeing what they went through, and I'd say, I don't want my parents to ever feel that kind of pain because of me. I don't want to see them tears on their face because of me. I became a very, very deep people pleaser. That's what I wanted to do. And how many of you know that that could destroy you? You cannot please people. I lost my own who I am because I want to be who everybody thinks I should be. I still fight that. I'm honest, I still fight that. Because that mind in me that tells me I'm not that. That my mom would say, oh, you just don't know. Look, she's sneaky. She's this, she's that. She would say them things, and in me, I didn't want to be them things. And I didn't want anybody else to think I was them things. Thank you. And so that has been very deep rooted to my feet and beyond in me. I have fought the unworthiness. I don't feel like I'm worthy of your love. I don't feel like I'm worthy to be standing up here in front of you. I have fought this unworthiness all my life. Ray and I was sitting on the front porch. I don't even remember what we were talking about. And all of a sudden this stuff started. We were just sitting there talking, and it was like the hate thing. It began to come up. And I was remembering the things that I heard my mother say when I was little. I was remembering trying to please and not knowing how to please and wanting to please. And then I grow up and I get married at 18, and I marry this man that, you know, to me he's the love of my life, and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm pregnant with our first child, and he has his first affair on me. I lived in that for 30 years. But I wanted to please him. I thought it was me is the reason he was the way he was. See, I always thought it was me. So I wanted to please him. And I stayed there 30 years trying to do that before I finally realized he's got problems that are his, not mine. You know, that I don't have to fix that. That's his to deal with. I got to deal with mine. Mine is to trying to please, and it began to wake me up. So when I get out of that, anyway, as we're talking, and I'm releasing this stuff and saying, my mother didn't know what she was doing. She didn't mean to do that. I know she loved me with everything in her. She didn't mean to make me feel like I wasn't worthy. She didn't mean to make me feel like I needed to please her all the time. She didn't mean to make me feel like I wasn't loved. But see, a child doesn't know how to reason like an adult would. I didn't know. That's not what Mama meant. But I thought it was. So I began to release these things in me again. I have been to hell so many times in here to bring the captive that was stuck in me, to bring it up and set it free. When I can bring it to here, I can change that energy. Every one of us, I promise you, has stuff stuck in us. And we can go, just like Mark said. He didn't really, he buried it. You think it's gone. Oh, yeah, I've dealt with that, that's gone. And I thought that too. After I got through with that, I said, I think I'm going to get up in College Station and I'm going to say, I challenge you all to go to hell.
I think we've all been there.
And that I knew, that everybody's been there already. And so, but, sorry, I didn't mean to get emotional. I wasn't going to do that.
That's good.
Release. But to experience some of the things that we have had to go through and to let it go. That song Frozen came out at a good time, didn't it? Let it go, let it go. You know that movie in Frozen? But to let these things go, they change your health. They change your mental attitude. They change your whole attitude. They just change you. They change you. And here's what they do. They make you more open to receive more of what you're really wanting to receive. And that is the love that you are. Teach you to love who you are. That has been my struggle, I'll be honest with you, is to love who I am. Because I see myself as that little Pentecostal girl that wasn't good enough. That's not who I am. I am a being of light. And I am so much more than that. I told you about the bicycle to tell you about the brain wiring. She mentioned changing the wiring. We may have these experiences and we may let these things go, we think. But if our brain wiring has not been changed, we will fall right back into the same stinking rut again. That is until we have enough tilt so we don't go there no more. We won't have to. And when we have that tilt, others will be able to come out of that without having to go through what we've gone through. It'll be a shift, it'll be a change. We're in this shift, we're in this changing of the age to know who we are, to know who we are. I have gone through many of this, and I'm sure y'all have too, and me telling my story makes you remember times that you've done something similar to that that you had forgotten about, or that you know, oh yes, 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 that's what that was, or whatever. I decided that because I don't always live out of my heart, this was powerful. I loved this. I don't always live from this one. I live from this one a whole lot. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. I wished I could stay over here in this heart area. I wished I could, and I try. But most of the time, I'm using that brain, trying to reason and think it out. So I made myself a little recording. I walk nearly every morning, about 5 miles usually around in our place. So I made my voice. One morning I started doing the round, and a whole complete round, I said, the divine that all that is would have me know I am worthy. I am beautiful. I am deeply loved. I am safe, and I will always be taken care of. And I said that over and over and over for 15 minutes. I walk and I listen to it again. And then I hit replay and I do it again. I have tried to do that at least 30 minutes, if not more, every single day, because I'm going to change that wiring in my brain, where I will no longer think I am not worthy, that I am not loved, that I'm that ugly little Pentecostal poor little girl, and that I've got to please to be safe. I got to please to love. Because you know what? You are worthy. You're very valuable. Every experience that you have gone through is of great value to you. No matter what you see it as today, no matter what you seen it as then, no matter how much pain it brought, it is of great value to you and to all. I am valuable, I am worthy, and you're very beautiful. We're very beautiful. If we could see who we really were, I am not the shell. I'm not the clothes. I'm not the tags. I'm not the boxes. I'm much more than that, and that is a beautiful being. And I am so deeply loved. And you are so, so deeply loved. So deeply loved that you will never, ever be forsaken. You will never, ever not be safe. You will always be taken care of. When the circumstances make us seem that we're not safe, or that I've got to worry about how am I going to take care of tomorrow? What am I going to do tomorrow? When we get into that frame of mind, we take it totally out of the heart space and back into that reasoning, and then we just fall apart. And we've got to fix it. We store stuff in our bodies that causes our bodies harm.
That's right.
And in this age, we're not going to be able to bring that stuff with us. It's got to go. It's got to shift. It's got to be released. And sometimes you have to deal with it yourself. Sometimes there's others that can help you deal with it. Sometimes there's others that will do it for you, and you won't even know it. But you have to stop and take your own responsibility for your own stuff. Everything that comes out here outside of me, when Ray does something that challenges me, aggravates me, he does it a lot. When he does that, I can't look at him and say, if you had not done this, I would not have, you're making me feel this way. I cannot do that now. I have to look in here and I have to say, wow, what is that hitting in me that makes me feel this way? What is that I need to look at in me that makes me not want to have to deal with that or that sees that like that? It's not his problem, it's my problem. He's got his own stuff he's got to deal with, and I'm a reflection to show him them. But he's a reflection to show me. And I have to take the responsibility of my own self, of my own reaction to whatever action was done. We have to do that. We can no longer say it was Mother's fault. We can no longer just say it was the church's fault. We can no longer say it's the government's fault. It's that man's or that woman's fault. We can no longer say if my kids had been better, if you know, all of this stuff. We can't do that anymore. We have to say, what is it teaching me? What is it showing me what I need to work on? What is it in me that's hitting and I don't like it? It must be something I need to get rid of. I need to work on. I need to recognize. These things will come up in us for the release. That's what they come up for. They're not coming up to torment us. They're not coming up to make us miserable. They're coming up so we can get rid of them. So when you see that happening, and you see that somebody else is bringing something you don't like in your space, look and say, this is for my good. It's bringing something in me that I need to get rid of. I need to let go, because you know what? Where I'm going, it can't go.
Yes.
So I'm going to challenge you, not necessarily to go to hell, but to look at every situation and that change your focal point. And whatever it is, I'm not here to fix anybody. I'm not here to save anybody. I'm not here to judge anybody else's stuff. I'm here to make sure I don't carry it in me. And my judgment of you will put it in me every time. So you think about that every time you look at a person and you have an opinion about it. Whatever that opinion is, that's your judgment. Because that's all opinions are. And we all got them, don't we? But when you look at a situation and you look at it and you look at your opinion, you're not putting it on him. You're putting it back in you. And it's something you're going to have to deal with. And you do it over and over enough, you get the bog down in it. That's why she said it's so important that we release that judgment. But it's not only for me to release that judgment that I no longer look at you and judge you for your situations. But the hardest one for me is that I no longer look at you and judge me for the ways that I have. That's the hard one. That's the hard one. And I work on it. I'm going to be honest, I'm still working on that. And if y'all know the key where I don't have to do it no more, let me know, please. But I'm going to leave you with that. Thank y'all for.
Thank you.
When I first started reading this stuff, I thought my life would become like a flip-flop overnight. And then all of a sudden, I started seeing the contradictions be exposed in me. And the biggest mistake that I did is I judged the contradictions. When I judged them, I set myself back in that spin cycle. So now, rather than judge my contradictions, I just let them be revealed. And it has come a long time for me to understand that when you know your true identity, these things are revealed because of what you know, yes, not because of what you don't know. So I just, when this stuff comes up, do not judge it. Hold it in contemplation. Hold it and observe it. Learn from it. But the second you judge it, then you become your contradiction rather than your truth.
That's right. Thank you.
I want to say just a few things before we head out for lunch. But first of all, I want a very, very, very special person, two people, to stand up and be acknowledged, because many of you have never met my youngest son, Keith. That's Keith, yay! And his lovely girlfriend, Courtney. So when I get to travel around the country and speak, they know who you are. As I talk about you behind your back. So I have a very quick story to tell you, and it has to do with cleansing your energy body, and also being very mindful of the things that you have placed in your life, maybe unbeknownst to you. So I have my middle son is named Chris, and Chris was over in Iraq, as many of you know, and when he came back a little different. And of course, you know that he experienced a traumatic motorcycle accident where he lost his left arm and leg. But there was something different about Chris. I mean, when you experience a war situation and when you're in theater, things change in your psyche. You know, when you're continually subjected to fear and the threat of hell, things change. And so he came back with PTSD. Anyone familiar with PTSD?
Yep.
So these things trigger responses in your body from fear, from having experienced trauma that can be very, very challenging and hard to live with. And Chris was telling us, and this was recently, I think within the last 6 months, he was telling us that he was having PTSD symptoms again, where he was, elevated heart rate and sweats, and but when he would go to bed at night, he would wake up in the middle of the night and he would hear gunshots, and sometimes he would hear machetes, and he would lose sleep. But he's such a trooper, he just kind of would get up and go to work, and he might mention it to me, "Hey Mom, I had another one of those episodes last night. Hey Mom, it's happening now, it's happening every night. Hey Mom, I think I might need to talk to somebody because it's a little overwhelming. Hey Mom, I'm not able to keep food down in the morning, I'm throwing up a lot, I'm nauseated all the time. Hey Mom, I'm still hearing gunshots." And so as a parent, you have to allow your grown child to work through issues, but we suggested that maybe he should talk to somebody about this. Maybe there's a counselor or someone that the VA could recommend that he could work with to help him over these rough spots. Maybe he needed to see a psychologist or someone that could help him process some of the events that he still will not talk about. Okay, so let me change gears here. I've got a grandson that when he was a toddler, he was fascinated with Army guns and with Army gear, and he just fascinated with it. He had all the little plastic men, and he had the tanks and the cranes, and just all of this Army stuff. And he would come over to our house and he would pull out his Army stuff, and he would play for hours whenever we would babysit him. And his parents started becoming a little bit concerned, my oldest son and his wife, because he would continually emulate being shot. He would sit in the living room while we were watching TV or playing cards or whatever, and he would play with his Army men and point the guns at himself, and he would quite often just kind of collapse over onto the couch and pretend like he was dead. And again, this is a toddler that's doing this. So his parents became alarmed, and they took away his Army stuff. And on their way over, they had decided that they would ask us, one time we were babysitting him, to put up his Army stuff as well. So before they got there, we put everything up so that he couldn't find them. Well, our grandson came tearing into the house, ran to the toy closet, and threw open the door, and all of his Army stuff is not there. And he said, "Grandpa, where's the Army stuff? Where is everything?" And Lyle, being the good grandfather that he is, said, "Well, sweetheart, you were getting a little crazy with that stuff." And so we had to take it away. And he said, oh, it's too late for that. And this is a toddler. And so he had played with this, with his Army guys and had pretended to be shot so many times. And this was fascinating to him. It was fascinating to him. So now I'm going back to Chris, and he's telling me that he's hearing gunshots, you know, every night now. And so I kind of kept that in the back of my mind, and I had 2 other grandkids come over, and they were upstairs playing with the Army men. Ironically, the same Army men that we had, you know, 15 years prior. They're now playing with them, and I told them, I said, you know what your older brother used to do? And so I told them the story of how he would imagine getting shot, and how he would feel it in his body, and how his parents finally took away the stuff and told him he was getting a little crazy with it. And they giggled and, you know, kind of laughed about it. And as I came downstairs, I put my foot on the very first step, and I heard that even though it wasn't something purposefully planted in his garden, but that my grandson had sown this desire to be shot. As odd as that sounds, he imagined it over and over and over and over again. And we are creative beings by nature. We do these things without recognizing. But I just thought, oh, but he was only 2, he was only a toddler. But as I made my way downstairs, I had such an overwhelming feeling that this was absolutely necessary for him to deal with this. Maybe not him, but for us to deal with what he had planted in his garden as a potential happening. I just felt that. And so I talked to Lyle about it, and he just really encouraged me not to share it with our kids, and just to kind of keep it to myself. So I did, and I just thought, well, maybe I will feel better about this the more time that passes by, but I just thought it was a real hazard for my grandson. I felt like this was something that needed to be dealt with at some level. So then, my son Chris comes by, and he's talking, and he says, you know, Mom, I have to tell you that these gunshots that I'm hearing, and I said, yeah? He said, it's not PTSD. He said, somebody that we know is going to be shot. He said, I know it's a premonition. I know it. It's a premonition. The gunshots that I hear are not the guns that we had in Iraq. He said, I can identify it. He said, one is a shotgun, and another one is a, I forget what he said, a 9mm or something. He said, I recognize the gunshots. He said, what I'm feeling is not PTSD. He said, it's actually a premonition. And I told him what I had just told his dad, my husband, about that Cole had planted these seeds over and over and over again as a toddler about being shot. And to me, that was a confirmation that all that was telling me, was giving me, us, a heads up that there was something planted in his garden that needed to be plucked up. Now, for those that are familiar with the scripture, listen to this and help me finish it. God is not mocked. What you sow, you will reap. God, all that is, I am, that dwells in you. You are a focusing mechanism. You are a distributor of energy. You are a creator, a co-creator of reality. God is not mocked. What you sow, you will reap. So now we're coming full circle, and I'm recognizing now that we have the ability to get still, to meditate, and to understand what you, each one of you, has planted in your garden as a potential happening at a date somewhere in the future. We need to be able to examine what we have said, what we have thought, what we have imagined. We need to understand those seeds that we've planted for our own potential future happenings, and to be able to go in now with consciousness and to say, no, that's not what I want. I want to be able to pull up Remember, and I think it's in the book of Ecclesiastes, there's a time to root up, to pull up, and there's a time to plant. So if you need to be challenged now, just today when we take our break, to think about and to ask all that is what you have brought into your life experience by just thinking and imagining and playing a scene out in your mind of something that you really don't want to happen, but that you planted in your own garden. You have the ability to change your course. You have that ability to go in and pull up and tear down and to replant what it is that you want. I have a friend that called me a while back, and he was really struggling with a circumstance in his own life. And he said, I told my wife that I would rather die than live one more day. And when he said that, shock waves went through my body, because I immediately had this vision and I saw his garden, and in his garden was death. And the more, listen to this, the more and more that we surrender judgment, the more and more that we come up and come out of those levels of hell, the more that our energy rises, the shorter the time span between the ultimate manifestation of the things that we have planted in our garden take to develop. I really massacred that. As we begin to leave behind these lower frequencies, as we begin to embrace love and non-judgment, we begin to take on more attributes of our creative potential within us. And the time that it takes to manifest something is literally being cut in half, if not more. Is that better? So we need to be very vigilant on what we say, because what we're doing is we are projecting potential out of our chakras into our future. You are projecting potential out from yourself, so be careful of what you say. Man, I look ugly today. Boy, that was stupid. I shouldn't have done that. You know, just like Avis is talking, talk to yourself kindly and gently and with love and compassion. Be aware that not only how you're talking about yourself, but your children or your friends or your coworkers, you are seeding potential into their path and your own. So let's be wise with our garden. What does the scripture say? Tend to your own garden. Tend to these things, and if you will just take the time and ask to see your garden, take the time to meditate and just go in and open the gate and see what's there. All that is will reveal what you have planted in your garden and what is growing there. And you have the opportunity to change that course. You can pull up those things that you said. I'm going to lose my job if I do this. You know, whatever it is, whatever you have planted in your garden, you have the authority to pull up and to replant. So as we break for lunch, I just wanted to leave you with that.